Good morning. This is Ron. It is Wednesday, 4th of July. Welcome to Story Time. And thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States of America, and speaking to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. War. The fascinating thing is that although we've had many combat operations, Operation Desert Shield, Operation Desert Storm, etc., we have not had a war in this country since World War II. And war is only possible if we have a declaration of war, if the Congress of the United States goes ahead and declares war. And we have not even had a president ask for a declaration of war since Roosevelt did it on December 8th or 9th of 1941. And I think a lot of that is because of socialist or communist dogma. Communism says that war is basically, again, a capitalist tool. It's a way for munitions makers and others to make money, to make a profit. And so they came up with the ideas of, came up with the policy or whatever of being anti-war. And so we have not had a president declaring war, like I said, since World War II. Korea was considered a police action. It's also, I think, the reason why the United Nations was created. It was, again, probably more of a communist idea, but implemented by Eisenhower and others. But anyways, you have the United Nations and Korea. The conflict in Korea was considered a police action, not a war. And the Vietnam conflict was wasn't even considered a police action. It was anti-communist. I know that. And there was the domino theory, that if you just let Vietnam go communist, then all the other countries in the region will end up going communist, and so you can't allow that to happen, so we have to get involved. It used to be a French colony. And my understanding is we sent advisors initially to aid our allies, the French, and then it became an issue where we just expanded ever further. And then we culminate in the wars that we've had recently in Afghanistan and Iraq. And again, I think we had an excellent case for war with Afghanistan. We'd asked Afghanistan for Osama bin Laden. They refused to turn him over. And you could make the case that's an act of war. Go to the people of the United States and ask for a declaration of war against Afghanistan. And I think they would have granted it. And we would have had a much different situation vis-a-vis the situation in the Middle East if we had gone ahead and done that. I think also it makes it easier to, you're going to go ahead and have a war, and it seems to me you got to go all the way. Instead of having a military campaign, you only put in a few troops, and you, with limited objectives, you go to war, you occupy the country, and you stabilize it. You do the things we did in Germany and Japan after World War II. So there are some good reasons to go to war. Although there are, of course, those people that say war is not worth it for any reason, and they're absolutely wrong. There are things, we go to war simply because it is preferable to being subjugated. It is preferable to being conquered. And if there's any doubts about that, look at the conquered peoples in Europe and Asia of World War II. China, the Chinese, the Koreans, and see what they were subject to by their conquerors, and it's that way throughout history, but particularly in World War II, and see how they were treated at the hands of their conquerors. So there are things that are worse than war, and being occupied, being subjugated, is among them. So now we're in a situation today where it used to be so unpopular that the left had managed to make war, the thought of any war, as far as they were concerned, there was no righteous war, and that made it so unpopular that they were able to get away with spitting on U.S. troops when they came back from Vietnam, spitting on them and calling them names and whatnot. And I'm sure that was an anti-war tactic. The idea is that if you can demoralize the troops and demoralize the people that are likely to become troops, then they will not want to get involved in wars. It will. You can't fight a war if you don't have an army, and if nobody wants to be in the army because they don't want to they don't want to be subject to the same kind of treatment that the soldiers in Vietnam were subject to, then you've accomplished your objective. You've in essence gotten rid of wars, or at least as far as the United States is concerned. So the way that that was countered, and what do? Do you come back, if you're a conservative, do you come back and say, well, up with war, war is great, war is fantastic? Again, a war is preferable, and I think they could have and should have spend more time emphasizing that. War is preferable to being subjugated. It's preferable to being, and look, also when you talk about subjugation, you don't even have to go back as far as World War II. Look at what happened to Vietnam. After Vietnam fell, and what happened to a lot of the people, the South Vietnamese, they ended up in re-education camps in the north, and those that didn't want to ended up on rickety boats out in the South China Sea, trying to flee communist oppression. And but anyways, if like I said, the troops are spit on, and that was, where war was at its low point. But the answer eventually became for conservatives to say, you hate the war. If you hate the war, that's fine, but love our troops. Hate the war, love our troops. Separating our troops from the war itself. Honor our troops, and what was the support our troops? That's the whole thing. That became the slogan. Support our troops. You don't like the war, that's fine, but support our troops. Now the left came back almost right away with a slogan of their own: is support the troops by bringing them home. Okay, supporting the troops by not having war, not having armed conflict in the first place. So, by not having armed conflict in the first place. Now, if you're looking at why is it that people go to war? Why do the troops go ahead and? Because if the whole notion of war is so unpopular, it's just ugly and crappy, then why should anybody bother to get into uniform? Why not just avoid it altogether, draft dodging if necessary? And right now, the reason it seems that most of the people, the men and women, join and get, go into combat is because of their battle buddies. You talk to them about why they're there, and they will usually tell you, I'm here to protect the guy next to me. When they get in a battle and you're killing other people, why are you killing them? I'm killing them to protect myself and others. I'm killing them because if I don't kill them, they will kill me. But it really doesn't answer the question, why are you here? And that's what each troop has to know and understand. Why are they in combat? In World War II, we knew we had a clear mission. You had a situation again in World War II where it was different than any time since World War II, as described by in the movie Band of Brothers, a person that was a veteran that was in the 101st or 82nd Airborne, and said that then a whole bunch of people from his town went to the recruiting station and wanted to sign up. And he said 4 men were turned down. And they went home, and all 4 of them committed suicide. Think about that. That's the attitude about going to war, and the idea of a righteous war. And this was considered an absolutely righteous war. That they weren't in it to protect their friends. They were in it to liberate countries that were being attacked and overrun by the Japanese and or the Germans. And so they're there as a liberating force, and that's why they're there. They're not, again, there to protect their battle buddies. Because in the long run, that's not a good enough reason to be there, just to protect the guy next to me. I got to know, because especially if I'm going to kill. It's one thing if I'm going to be a medic or something like that, where I'm not required to kill anybody. But to answer the question within my own soul as to why am I killing people, particularly people I don't know, I've never met, and who haven't harmed me personally, I've got to have a good answer to that question. And protecting my battle buddy isn't good enough in the long run. I need to know that I'm doing this for righteous reasons. And so you have to have a commander-in-chief that is going to be able to articulate that, is come out and say, we've got a mission, and our mission is to, in the case of World War II, is to liberate Europe from the evils of Nazism, to liberate the Asia from the evils of the Japanese Empire. And so that's giving you a purpose to being there, and not just a sort of a defensive, it's kind of a defensive attitude about it. Because again, in the long run, saving my battle buddy isn't going to be, that's not really a rallying cry. Save your battle buddy, liberate Europe, yes. And so we have to have that, I think, today in when as long as we're going to have military, and we're going to be expecting ourselves to use that military in various capacities, we have to have good rationales. And that's part of the process, I think, of going to war, going to Congress and asking for a declaration of war where the president can spell it out to the United States. This is why we're going to war. Okay, in the case of Osama bin Laden, we're going to war because he's the chief person responsible for slaughtering 3,000 innocent Americans who were doing nothing but going about their business, going about their day. He had his minions run a couple of planes into the trade towers, the World Trade Towers, and one into the Pentagon, and now expects to just walk away. And Afghanistan is standing in our way of capturing this individual, putting them on trial, prosecuting them, and putting them in prison, to getting justice. And that's the reason that we need to go to war with Afghanistan. It's a righteous war, it's a righteous cause, etc. So we need that. You have to start thinking in those, conservatives especially, have to start thinking in those terms of those mentality, of that mentality of understanding and knowing that there are damn good reasons to go to war. Yes, war is destructive, war is terrible in a lot of ways, but there are good reasons to go ahead and take the risks associated with going to war. Okay, so when I come back, good news about the president and the United States in general. So thank you very much. And so this is from the Donald Trump and White House Twitter feeds. So let's see what we've got here. Let's see. One of them here says, heading to West Virginia to be with my friend, West Virginia Governor Jim Justice, at his beautiful Greenbrier Resort. He works hard, does a great job, and raises a lot of money for charities. Now let's see. Let's see what else we've got here. Come on. Let's see. Safeguarding our country is what we ask our law enforcement community to do each and every day. See the real stories for those who protect our borders. Let's see. High optimism, low unemployment, millions of new jobs. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is fulfilling President Trump's critical goals for the U.S. economy. Let's see. Let's see what else we got. Oh, from Eric Trump, just a reminder, the Dow Jones is up 33% since President Trump became president. And let's see. From Marco Rubio, praise the Lord, all you nations. Extol him, all you peoples. His mercy for us is strong. The faithfulness of the Lord is forever. Hallelujah. Psalms 117, chapter or verse 1 through 2. Let's see, should be one last one in here. Many good conversations with North Korea. It's going well. In the meantime, no rocket launches or nuclear testing in 8 months. All of Asia is thrilled. Let's see, only the opposition party, which concludes the fake news, is complaining. If not for me, we would now be at war with North Korea. So, there you go. A little bit of, as I had said before, I want to walk my talk, and one of the things I'm critical of other pundits is that they don't present positive news about Donald Trump and about the administration, that they spend as much time harping on negative news about what's going on with Mueller and Schmuller and Fluller and all these other boobs than does CNN and MSNBC. So when I come back, more good news. It's going to be from the Popular Mechanics magazine. Thank you. Welcome back. And from the July-August 2018 issue of Popular Mechanics, an article called The Quiet Supersonic Jet. NASA hopes you won't notice its newest experimental plane. In the 1960s, the Air Force was testing supersonic planes over Oklahoma City. Residents complained of broken windows and dishes falling from cupboards. The result of sonic booms up above. When the jets went past 767 miles per hour, outpacing the noise from their engines and air resistance, those shock waves coalesced into pressure that would release like biblical thunder, damaging houses thousands of feet below. That side effect is why, even 71 years after Chuck Yeager's first supersonic flight, you have to be in the military if you want to fly faster than the speed of sound over land. That is also why the Concorde flew supersonic only over the ocean. But Lockheed Martin has an idea. Its engineers have designed the Low Boom Flight Demonstrator, a plane with aerodynamic technology that allows it to fly beyond the speed of sound without the noise of a typical sonic boom. Lockheed engineers started with a long Concorde-like body and delta wing, ideal for high-speed, long-distance travel. Then they added canards, extra wings toward the front, and a small T-tail at the rear. At speed, those extra features interrupt the pressure buildup that causes a sonic boom. According to Lockheed, this will reduce the typical 105 decibel thunderclap to a 75 perceived level decibel rumble, barely audible from the ground. NASA has given the company a contract worth $247.5 million to build the LBFD, with the first takeoff scheduled for summer 2021. After those first survey flights, pilots will take the LBFD up to Mach 1.4 at 55,000 feet over populated areas of the United States. NASA will then canvass the people living below to find out whether the sonic booms were tolerable. If successful, the LBFD's findings will help determine the future of manned flight. And some of the private supersonic players are, several American aeronautics companies have been quietly building their own high-speed civilian planes. Boom Supersonic, founded by a former Amazon executive, has built a 2-seat prototype jet, the antecedent to the 55-seat passenger jet. Boom says it already has 76 pre-orders, with commercial flights planned for the mid-2020s. Meanwhile, Ariane Supersonic and Spike Aerospace are building supersonic private jets. These smaller craft can hit the speed of sound, manufacturers say, without a loud sonic boom. All three companies are aiming for first flights within the next 3 to 4 years. So, I like to read from Popular Mechanics, and because most of the articles in Popular Mechanics are benevolent universe oriented. They reinforce and acknowledge reality, and the fundamental reality is that this is a benevolent universe, that things are knowable, they are not scary, and that success is to be expected. So, Now, when I come back, it is going to be, let's see, what am I, well, we'll see when I get back. So we're back, and let's see, where are we at here? Right there. Checking the Kindle. Oh, wait, I know what it is. It's going to be the Bill O'Reilly interview with Playboy magazine. So, um, and Bill O'Reilly was the star of The Factor. He's no longer on Fox. He agreed with Fox that the best thing for him to do was to go ahead and leave because there was arbitrary allegations against him of inappropriate conduct with women, so sexual harassment type things, and he shouldn't have gone because again the allegations were arbitrary, but too late now. He's already done it. So let's see, where are we at here? Huh. Let's see. Well, okay, this is a place that I want to do it. Start. Playboy. What impact does the factor have? A good question. Honest question. We skewered the Red Cross for not distributing the money to the families that need it, and they got blasted. After that, they released millions of dollars. We took on Jesse Jackson, and his credibility has been damaged. People try to dismiss us, but even those who don't watch the show hear about it, so we have an enormous amount of power. News we report is on all political websites. Bush gets a transcript of the factor every day. So this was during the Bush administration. Playboy, how do you know? O'Reilly, we know. And we know that they don't want to have a guy like me around because if I have the goods, I will pound on them. Playboy, obviously you're more sympathetic to those you agree with. Now, the only problem with this question is positive. Is instead of saying, "Isn't it true you're more sympathetic to those you agree with," and asking O'Reilly to try to prove a negative, they do come out and state a positive, but it's argumentative. Instead of asking a question, are you more sympathetic with those you agree with? And going from there, he makes a statement. And Bill O'Reilly goes ahead and argues with him. Bill O'Reilly should have said, excuse me, but you asked me here for an interview. Is there a question there? The shortest way to answer it would have been to say, simply ask him, is that a statement or a question? And make him rephrase it in the form of a question. O'Reilly, why would I be? Number one, it's no fun. Number two, then I could be accused of being a shill for a certain point of view. Playboy, which is a common criticism. O'Reilly, I'm a shill for no one. I'm independent. I'm a shill for myself. Now, Playboy said, which is a common criticism, without producing any evidence of it. So they make an arbitrary claim. And that's how O'Reilly should have dealt with that. Excuse me, but that's an arbitrary claim, so I get to ignore it. And also, or to say, I'm sorry, is that a question or statement? Because they did make a statement. They didn't ask a question. Playboy, do you admit you would be harder on Bill Clinton than on George W. Bush? O'Reilly, I'm going to be tougher on Clinton because there's so many more unanswered questions with Clinton. Now, Playboy here does again phrase it in a positive way, but again, it's argumentative. Do you admit that? Instead of the better question would have been, would you be harder on Clinton than Bush? And O'Reilly would have answered it, no, I'm tougher on Clinton. Playboy, what would be your first question to him? O'Reilly, I would ask him about the Mark Rich pardon, about which he has never come clean. Then I would segue into the moral relativism that he brought to almost everything in his 8 years as president. Playboy, is Bill Clinton number one on your most wanted guest list? O'Reilly, Hillary is. Playboy, more than Bill? Why? O'Reilly, she's much more dangerous than he is. Playboy, how is she dangerous? O'Reilly, her ambition has consumed her. Bill Clinton is an opportunist and he doesn't have a lot of core positions, though he genuinely cares and will try to help. He is interested in other people. I just don't see that in Hillary. Playboy, if the Clintons were Republicans, however, would they get the same treatment? O'Reilly, ask John Ashcroft if I'm easier on Republicans. Ask Tom DeLay. but I've never seen a colder, more calculating politician in this country than Hillary Clinton. Playboy, many Americans apparently do not agree with you. She has a lot of support. And again, in this particular, now he does ask, the Playboy does ask, if the Clintons were Republicans, however, would they get the same treatment? Perfectly honest question, fair question, good for them for asking it that way. Playboy asked then, many Americans apparently do not agree with you, and she has a lot of support. What is your evidence of that? Okay, and again, is that a question or a statement? O'Reilly, they're entitled to their opinions. And this, again, now he's going wrong because he's now in kind of an awkward position. He's conceding the point. He's conceding that many Americans don't agree with you. Why? Why concede that point if you haven't been given evidence of it? Okay, make the left do its job. Make it do the work. Okay, they're going to make a statement like that, produce the evidence to go along with it. They're entitled to their opinions, but I think most of the people who embrace Hillary Clinton are under the influence of ideology. They'll support her no matter what she does because they see her agreeing with their core beliefs. That's the Jesse Jackson syndrome, too. It doesn't matter what they do because they agree with me on certain issues I feel strongly about. But it should matter. We just reported that Hillary Clinton didn't attend one funeral for the people who were killed in the September 11 attacks. Not one. I called her office 15 times to ask for an explanation. They basically gave us the finger. But because of the factor, everybody in the country knows that Hillary Clinton didn't go to one funeral for the regular folks killed at the World Trade Center. If I'm running against her 5 years from now, that's my first political commercial. Miss Concern didn't go to one. Playboy, is that an announcement that you're running for the Senate? O'Reilly, are you kidding? No way. Playboy, going beyond your particular loathing for Hillary Clinton, do you at least agree that you reserve your worst attacks for liberals? And again, there's a statement here and a question. So at least they kind of put it together, but it's a little bit slick. Going beyond your particular loathing for Hillary Clinton. I don't remember him ever saying that he loathed or hated Hillary Clinton. What he was saying was he'd like to have her on the show, number one, because she's the coldest politician he's ever met. So, O'Reilly, no, for big shots. I killed New York Governor George Pataki because he wouldn't do anything about the charity snafu. He could have solved it in a day. I went after him. That's my job. No one knows how to put me in a box. The effect of the show is that nobody is safe. I don't make deals, and no one can get to me. Now, that's the other problem with what's happened to news over the years. It started with, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and leave the interview here for the time, for today. But it just occurred to me when he was saying that, when he says, let's see, I did this, that, and the other thing, let's see, that's my job. I went after him. That's my job. No, it isn't. If you're a news guy, then your job is to report the news. We now have people like O'Reilly, and there's many of them, who really aren't news people. They're not talk show hosts in a classic sense like Johnny Carson or whatever. He had a talk show or a variety show, and but they're not really talk show hosts, and they're not news people either. There's some kind of a weird hybrid. And the reason that they exist is because of for-profit news. If it wasn't for the fact that we now have news departments that are for-profit, if we were still a non-profit organization, people like Bill O'Reilly wouldn't exist. There would be no place for him, because news would not be about ratings. It would not be about making a profit. It would have its integrity. News would be about news, period, and about integrity and credibility and influence. You have never heard Walter Cronkite or Roger Mudd or any of the guys back in the 60s say that I go after them, that's my job. It's not your job to go after them. It's your job to get the news. That's what your job is. Okay, not to go after people. So let's see what we got going here. When we come back, I'll do a few jokes from the New York City Cab Drivers Joke Book. So thank you very much. And I'm reading now from the New York City Cab Driver's Joke Book by Jim Peach. And let's see, how did Staten Island get its name? In the 1600s, when the Dutch first saw it from their ship, they kept saying to each other, Staten Island? A Polish man said to me, You know, you Americans have Polish jokes, but we in Poland tell American jokes. Would you like to hear an American joke from Poland? Sure, I said. Okay, said the Pole, how many Americans does it take to change a light bulb? I said, I'll bite. How many? The Polish man said, one. Why did God create Gentiles? Someone has to pay retail. And on that note, we conclude another episode of Storytime. And until next time, thank you very much for joining me. Happy 4th of July. Have a great day.